Okay, so 2021 Truck Series predictions. I I'm gonna be honest with you. I kind of didn't want to make this video because these players are just kind of predictable. And if you watch the Truck Series season so far, you know what I mean. There's just one guy here that's running away with everything, but at the very least, I can just talk about how I feel like these playoffs will play out and give you out my predictions as to which drivers will be eliminated in which round. Of course, keep in mind this is just my opinion, so if you have a different opinion, then go ahead, but I feel like a lot of people won't have a problem with this. So first of all, the round of 10, it's gonna start this week in the Gateway, followed by a race at Darlington because Canada is still under lockdown due to Rona and stuff like that, and closing out at Bristol. So, there are two drivers that are gonna be eliminated after this round, and it's not gonna be John Hunter Nemechek, it's not gonna be Sheldon Creed, it's not gonna be Ben Rhodes or Austin Hill or Todd Gilliland or Crafton or Saint Smith. None of those 7 guys. I feel like these 7 guys will advance without any major issue unless something major happens to any of these guys, but if all goes as planned and there are no like crazy twists and turns in this playoffs, which honestly I don't believe that. I think there will be like a surprise elimination. Otherwise this bracket will be perfect. But for the most part, if I was a betting man, these 7 will make it past the round of 10 without any issues. Now these three guys, I believe they weren't locked in at Watkins Glen. I don't know if Hosebar or Friesen were locked in, but I know that Chandler Smith wasn't, and because of that, I have Chandler Smith eliminated. He barely snuck into the playoffs. Even with the disqualification, he still managed to have enough of a points cushion to still stay in the playoffs. But really, the 18 truck has a history of underperforming. Like, you had Harrison Burton in that truck, and he didn't work out. Then you had Christian Eckes, he also didn't work out. Chandler Smith, I had high hopes for him because last season in his part-time schedule, he racked up a bunch of top 5s in his part-time schedule, and I thought he was gonna compete for wins. Now granted, he almost won Knoxville. Some people will argue that he was robbed, but that was just one race. Like, outside of Knoxville and maybe Nashville, I don't feel like Chandler Smith has been a contender for wins as I hope he would be. I thought he would be contending for wins a bit more often. So anyways, the final spot, that means that the final spot in the round of 8 will come down to either Stuart Friesen or Carson Hosebar. Now, Friesen has definitely, even though Friesen has definitely made it back into the playoffs, I don't feel like he has returned to form. I feel like this is not the same Stuart Friesen that we saw back in 2019. And of course, a big reason for that has to be the manufacturer switch to Toyota. At first, I thought that Friesen switching to Toyota, he was still going to stay in form because, and they were also going to have an alliance with KBM. But of course, with KBM struggling, at least their young drivers, their 51 car, when Kalbush is driving, that 51 car looks really fast. But when the young drivers are driving it, are running that truck, it felt like they were not performing. And it feels like Stuart Friesen fell down to the norm of the KBN guys, and he also started like underperforming, and he ended up missing the playoffs. Now, of course, a lot of that had to do with that terrible luck that he had, but still, I don't know if Friesen would have made the playoffs last season, even without all those crashes. He would have been in contention, but I don't know if he would have being able to make it. Now this season he's made it, but he's still not his 2019 self. And because of that, I gotta give the final spot to Carson Hocevar. Now, here's a fun story. Well, funny for you guys, but not funny for me, because this was a take that aged really poorly. Back when I made my preseason predictions video for the Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup Series, I did not mention Carson Hocevar at all. Like, I didn't mention him at all. And when I realized my mistake, I just brushed it off and said, oh, whatever, Hocevar won't be a factor, he won't even be in the playoffs. So basically, I was sleeping on Carson Hocevar, which was a huge mistake. And I'll just take my L at this point. I'll just take my L. I messed up. I should have mentioned him, or at the very least, I should have given him a mention. I didn't have him in the playoffs. Not having him in the playoffs is one thing, but not mentioning him at all and just straight up sleeping on him, disrespecting him, that was just a terrible take on my part. But yeah, there's always this young guy that I always end up sleeping on. Last year, 2020, it was Shane Smith, and this season it's Carson Hocevar. Now, I believe that Hocevar carries more momentum heading into the playoffs than Stewart Friesen, and because of that, I believe that Carson Hocevar will make it to round of 8. However, that's where he'll stay, because when you look at these guys here, there's no way that Carson Hocevar, unless he wins at Talladega, but there's no way that Carson Hocevar is gonna be overtaking any of these guys for a championship 4 spot. Same thing goes for Shane Smith. And look, I know I said that I made the mistake of sleeping on Shane Smith, but that was last year. This year, Shane Smith, every time I look at a Truck Series race, Shane Smith is running from 6th to 10th. I always see him there. He occasionally wins a stage or finishes top 3 in a stage. But outside of that, he only has one top 5 in the regular season. He's made it into the playoffs similar to Matt Crafton due to sheer consistency. But when you're going up against guys like Todd Gilliland, Austin Hill, and John Hunter Nemechek, guys that have massive amounts of playoff points and have really proven that they can go out there and lead a lot of laps, I don't think Shane Smith has the playoff points I just don't feel he has it in him to. He doesn't have enough. That's what I'm trying to say. He doesn't have enough to just get past these guys and make it to the championship 4, just to simply put it. Matt Crafton, I know a lot of people will say that Matt Crafton is always a guy to pay attention come playoff time, even if he doesn't have a win, because 2019. But of course, what a lot of people are missing on is that Matt Crafton won his 2019 title on the heels of pure consistency. Crafton has yet to replicate that. He wasn't as consistent in 2020. He's not as consistent in 2021. As a matter of fact, I feel like he is consistently running in the mid-pack more often than not. Of course, he made it into the playoffs by just clearly finding his way, keeping his way out of trouble, which is always a great skill for a driver to have. And I believe that Crafton is going to be in contention for a championship 4 spot during the cutoff race at Martinsville, but that's about it. When I think of Matt Crafton, I think of his ceiling being like almost make it to the championship 4 but not make it enough. Like, that's Matt Crafton's ceiling. He will almost make it, but at the very end he will come up just short. That's not to say he will be in contention. Matt Crafton can have these moments where he can like surprise a lot of people and say maybe this guy can upset somebody, but then he'll revert back to the norm and and just run from 10th to 15th every other week, just pacing around. Now, of course, I don't think he will be running that poor. I think he will be running like in the top 10, and you'll see him competing for occasional top 5s in the playoffs, because he's been here before and he knows how to win. But again, the lack of playoff points at the very end, the lack of playoff points is gonna seriously hurt him, and it's gonna be a serious hurdle for him to climb unless one of these guys suffers a monumental collapse. So speaking of the Championship 4, let's just go ahead and quickly put John Hunter Nemechek in there. Todd Gilliland is another guy that I have making it to the Championship 4. I believe this guy has definitely taken the next step. All he had to do was address the inconsistencies that plagued them last year, and so far he's only been involved in one accident, and that was at Daytona. Every other race has been either a top 15, top 20, a few top 15s, a few top 20s, but it has mostly been top 5s, and of course that win at Coda. Todd Gilliland has finally figured out, and I believe with how the playoff grid is right now, he has a very clear path on making it to the Championship 4. Sheldon Creed, I also have him making it to the Championship 4. Not because he is the defending champion, but because he has proven that he can turn it up in the playoffs. Sheldon Creed, I am aware that he has been inconsistent in the regular season, but there's a reason he is a defending champion. And that 2 team, outside of sponsorship, that 2 team for the most part has been intact. Has been largely intact for last season. They kept it the same pretty much. So I have Sheldon Creed and the crew running it back and making it to the Championship 4. Do I think they'll repeat? That's a tall task. It's possible, but again, if I was betting on it, I don't think it will happen. And finally, the final Championship 4 spot. Austin Hill or Ben Rhodes. 2 guys that have won 2 races each. One of them won them at the start of the season, and the other won them at the tail end of the regular season. Now, of course, many people are gonna say Ben Rhodes because he's had the best season of his career already. The fact that he's won 2 races, and he started off the season hard, winning those first 2 races, that's already a milestone in and of itself, because Ben Rhodes had never won 2 races in a single season. And of course, a lot of people are going to point out to Austin Hill's struggles in short tracks like Phoenix and Martinsville, and they will go with Ben Rhodes making it to the Championship 4. But here's the thing. Austin Hill has momentum heading into the playoffs. He won the last 2 races of the regular season, and I believe that momentum is going to carry over into the round of 8 tracks like Gateway, specifically Gateway, Darlington, and Las Vegas, because those 3 are intermediate tracks, and Austin Hill is amazing at the intermediate tracks. And he's also really underrated on the super speedway tracks too. So look for him to be like so don't be surprised if he actually ends up running up front at Talladega, because he's also really good at super speedways. He has a knack for being there at the end on a few super speedway races. So Austin Hill has a chance to rack up playoff points, while Ben Rhodes, outside of those 2 wins, all he has done is just run from 6th to 10th every other week. Has scored a few top 5s, but for the most part, I haven't seen him go out there and lead laps like Austin Hill has. So because of that, I have Austin Hill making it to the Championship 4 over Ben Rhodes. And I mean, is this really a question? By now, it should be pretty obvious who I am picking as a champion. Of course, it may not come to pass, but right now, like, John Hunter Nemechek is the odds-on, overwhelming odds favorite to win the championship. If it doesn't, I know a lot of people, myself included, will cry about how the playoffs are just screw over drivers that deserve it more. But that's a whole nother conversation. It kind of feels pointless now making this video, now that I look at it, because I always knew it will end in a John Hunter Nemechek championship, but I mean, we said that last season about Harvick, and look how that turned out. And funny thing is that John Hunter Nemechek is driving has the same number that Kevin Harvick had in Cup, or he still has in Cup. So I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to say that this is a bad omen for John Hunter Nemechek, but all I'm saying is that nothing is for certain. But as for these playoff predictions, I'm done.